so many ideas going on in this project, but it's just the start.
Good design is all about creating that moment of bliss.
This is really also the hospitality and the tourism of tomorrow.
This is what we want to show.
We have created something which blends into the environment, and the house itself is basically seamless.
Imagine you were able to just teletransport.
You are on your own island in the center of Amsterdam.
I think you have to go there to believe it.
Well, hello to Cox Architecture, who've won the sports category in this year's awards. Looking forward very much to your presentation of the Ken Rosewall Arena in Sydney. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity for presenting our building. I'm John Ferrarinas, Project Director. Ken Rosewall Arena was built for as the premier tennis venue for the 2000 Olympic Games in Sydney. So Ken Rosewall Arena sits as the focal point along Olympic Boulevard in the master plan for the Olympics, as you can see identified in the grey on the plan. We do this first. Okay. Our master plan proposes the precinct developing in 2 stages. Stage 1 was the 2020 upgrade of the centre court with new roof, and stage 2 upgraded show court and players and administration building. An upgrade required the overlay works for the ATP Cup to be hosted in 2020, and then the netball state competitions that would follow. All of these would not hinder the community event that would continue as a tennis venue for the facility. Our master plan shows really is messing us around. Sorry. This diagram shows how the new roof with the existing bowl in its condition. Our intention from the outset was to try and retain as much of the existing facility and save embodied energy in the existing concrete frame by removing the roof and creating this new facility. Tennis requires the facility to be played with an open edges, so that the impression to the tennis players is that they're playing outdoors under the shade. Whereas with netball, the intention was to enclose the facility and exclude dust, glare, and wind, so that the players were playing in an indoor facility, which created quite a challenge for us in the design. Nevertheless, when you looked at the 2 sections here, the existing building and the proposed building in 2020, essentially the donut roof was removed and the new tensile roof with its cable net structure was installed using the existing structure of the building frame. From above, you can see the operable facade in its open condition, forming the perimeter of the roof, and the roof is glowing at night because of its PDFE fabric look. The building is brightly white, all the new facilities, whereas the existing was retained and identified in its greys of the existing structure. The floor plan shown here enters patrons at the mid-level. The lower bowl takes you down directly through the aisles, whereas upstairs to your left and right at entry, the upper bowl sits above the amenities. As part of the upgrade to the facility, we enhanced the signage system and introduced a background of blue to draw you into each of these entry points, and contrasted the signage coloring in the strong white to make it obvious as to which gate you must go into as part of the signage and wayfinding to your seats. As you enter, you're directed either left or right up those stairs as described before, or down the center aisle. This plan shows the completed floor plan with its circular bowl, which was based on a design done by BDP Architects out of London for Wimbledon Centre Court that they adapted for the Sydney Olympics in 2000, 3 years later. They did this design in close collaboration with BVN Architects and Arab engineers. When you enter into the bowl, the entire roof is obvious to you. You can see the cable net structure, the tensile ring in the center, which is a conical structure that supports a pop-up roof for ventilation of the louvers, and also supports the screens and gondola system for the spectator viewing. The seating is colored in blues, which are taken from the tennis court colors as well as New South Wales sporting colors, and they speckle as they get up towards the facade.
The leading edge is placed 4 meters above the back of the bowl to create an open visual connection to the skyline, as requested by tennis, and provide a visual disengagement from the original bowl. To prevent glare, wind and dust as required for netball, the building is enclosed with a large hydraulically controlled folding translucent glass panels, creating a highly animated and changeable facade. At night, the translucent facade becomes evident. Through a thorough CFD analysis, natural ventilation was demonstrated as appropriate to create a usable environment underneath the roof. The roof protects occupants from direct sun, but allows air movement through the open facade. The folding window panels introduce fresh air into the venue. This air is drawn into the center of the roof oculus, and the hot air escapes through the operated louvers. This diagram shows the roof services, cable tray management, lighting, audio, and mechanical air movers. The thermal comfort for a spectator is provided by a large air movers above the seats. For the players, a bump-in air cooler system blows air at the edge of the field of play when required. A full cable tray infrastructure has been carefully integrated into the roof to fit the sport lighting required for high-definition recording and carefully integrated with the sound systems.
It's evident when you see the building in its condition, how brightly its roof is expressed. And we've carefully designed the roof and supporting structure to integrate with the existing building. At night, this becomes a beacon in the master plan at the focal point of the Olympic Boulevard, identifying it as a continuing sporting legacy. The building opened in January 2020 in time for the inaugural ATP Cup. The concept design started only a year earlier and construction was completed on time and on budget. During an event, the building is adapted and enhanced with the new branding systems that were developed to create a live site for additional spectators to enjoy the sport going on inside the venue. Fortunately, with a short break in COVID, we were able to host netball during the Swifts and Giants home competition for June 2021. We believe we've designed a building that has enhanced and improved the legacy of the facility. The building had reached its life and required this upgrade in order to perpetuate its legacy. This was then converted into a new branding system that was applied to the building throughout. The branding has been given new life to the building and is expressed throughout the facility. This was then taken further to event livery that the organization has taken on board and uses for all its events. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that. A wonderful project and a great kind of super retrofit. Kim Nielsen, you've designed arenas. Questions, comments?
Yeah, first, what you did was the roof only. You didn't do any refit of the arena as such, or what?
The entire building had to be upgraded because we were adapting the building. The entire electrical system, mechanical system, structural stability, because all the codes 20 years ago were out of date. And so the building, essentially the only thing that was retained was the concrete pole.
Yeah, we changed
the seating, changed the lighting, changed the cables, refitted the toilets, everything was upgraded.
All the camera positions as well. Yeah.
So it's basically a new building, except we retained the concrete frame of the bowl and its foundations.
Oh, so it's for sports only. It's not for concerts or anything. It's only sport, isn't it? Yeah, as I understood it.
The client's desperately wanting to host other events, and so it does. It's primarily tennis and netball, but there are gaps in the program. Unfortunately, COVID put a finish to all their proposals and plans, but there were gaps in the program to allow for hosting events. So it is intended to host musical events and concerts and religious events. All kinds of things were intended to use the building, maximize its utilization.
Okay, I have a last
question.
Thank
you very much. I'm going to move on to Nuno, if I may. Nuno?
Hi. Beautiful building. The way that the new the white structure kind of embraces the whole atmosphere, I think is quite beautiful. It's not clear. I think the truth is that because the presentation had a little bit some accidents, but it is not clear to us a little bit what is new and what was there a little bit. So I think that the most impacting element is the new covering of the building and the rebranding, from what I understand.
That's correct. So to make it clearer, in the section, the concrete bowl is retained. The toilet boxes are retained, but we refitted the toilets inside. So essentially it's a carcass that we kept and refitted everything around it. And the columns, everything, steel columns retained, and they supported the new roof.
Yeah, so we keep the raking columns and we enlarge the columns. So that's when we changed the color from light gray to the existing gray. And we change it to be 4 meters above the ball, so we can have like the 17 meters clear for the tennis. And also
was the original covered or uncovered? The original arena. Was the original arena covered or uncovered? The original arena, was it covered or not?
The original arena was a donut, so it only covered partial seats at the edges. Okay. Yeah, so it was an outdoor. It was basically an outdoor arena, which worked fine for the Olympics, but it just it couldn't sustain itself. I mean, going through global warming as well, the temperatures just became unbearable. And so the roof dropped the temperature by 20 degrees. We can get summer here gets up to 40 degrees Celsius. And so the roof kept the temperature at the same level as outside for tennis.
I think it's important to mention that the Olympics were in August, where the weather in Sydney is quite not cold, but
cool.
And then the only season or the only date that they have to do this tournament by the ATP is in December, which is a super hot
right in the middle of our summer. Yeah.
And Sydney was trying to attract all the different tournaments they have for the tennis during that time.
And also rain, we can get rain right in the middle of summer at any time. So they kept having cancellations. And so the roof is a rain cover and a shade for the tennis, and then in winter it becomes for the netball, because that's a winter sport. It becomes an enclosed environment. So we also have to deal with work being able to play tennis. I mean, there's some interesting things. I don't want to bore you with tennis and netball and what temperatures need to be, but the CFD had to work to the right temperature for the players on the court to enjoy the game, because they can't play outside certain temperatures. And the same for spectators. Spectators won't come if it's too uncomfortable. So we have to balance those two issues. We can even bump in air conditioning if we need.
Thank you very much.
Just for the players.
I'm going to invite Christina to ask a question or make a comment.
Sorry, I'll try and get short answers.
Thank you for this presentation. So it seems to me that you had to, the main purpose of this project was essentially to achieve an enclosed space with enough height for tennis, which the roof did. And then you showed this very interesting facades, which are hydraulically retractable. Can you explain a little bit more about that system and why you needed to have that system, and why not have something that's fixed and can be translucent? Or, I mean, is the interior ventilated? Is it actually ventilated? I wasn't quite sure I understood that part.
Yeah, the biggest challenge was that technically tennis and netball, they want a completely different type of venue. So while tennis want to keep the stadium open and having the perception of playing outdoors, netball, they want an enclosed venue. And one of the triggers is also when you play netball, you can't have any glare. So that's why we need to cover the facade during the netball season. And then when you do that, you start triggering all the fire systems.
But why would you need to do that with a solid glass facade or a solid facade rather than just a fabric cover for glare?
Because it's as a window in the vertical, the codes in Australia require any vertical fabric is not permitted in a vertical environment. So we could have put a solid panel if we wanted to, but we felt that the translucent was more integrated with the roof, bringing it down onto the wall, so you got that translucent appearance like the roof. Otherwise, it would have been a solid. Yeah, fire wouldn't permit fabric in the vertical. Correct.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that. Don't worry about the technical glitches. We're not here to judge the technology of presentations. We're here to look at the architecture, and you've shown us something which is a sort of major enhancement of a tired facility, and I think it's been very encouraging. Congratulations on winning the sports category. And we look forward to visiting at some point in the future. Thank you very much for your time.
And if you're in town, please call us up. We'd love to take you around the facility or around Sydney. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.